In the late 1950s, German fighters meant two air forces facing each other across the same narrow corridor of European airspace, each rebuilt under different alliances and doctrines. In West German service, the Canadair CL-13 Sabre restored a modern-day fighter baseline, emphasizing quick climbs, gun and rocket air tactics, and routine air defense readiness over the Federal Republic's skies. Alongside it, the Republic F-84F Thunderstreak appeared in a qualified fighter-bomber role, fast enough to sit within fighter units while being tasked primarily for low-level attack and NATO strike commitments. Across the border, East Germany fielded Soviet patterns. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-15 bis anchored early jet fighter units as a straightforward day fighter, optimized for point defense and controlled intercepts. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-17F and its Polish-built LIM-5 counterpart extended that lineage with better handling at higher speeds while remaining a daylight fighter staple. To expand coverage beyond clear weather conditions, the MiG-17PF, also produced as the LIM-5P, served as a qualified all-weather interceptor variant, adding radar-assisted interception to the same basic airframe. By the turn of the 1960s, German fighter forces were being reshaped by the expectation of fast, high-altitude intruders and the need to meet them in poor weather as reliably as in daylight. In West German service, the North American F-86K Sabre Dog represented the all-weather interceptor solution, built around radar-guided control and standardized interception procedures, rather than the close-in flexibility of earlier-day fighters. On the eastern side, speed became the headline capability. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-19S introduced a true supersonic day fighter into East German units, suited to rapid climbs and short-notice intercepts when conditions allowed visual acquisition. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-19PM followed as a qualified radar interceptor variant, shifting the same basic platform toward guided intercept work with missile-era emphasis and less reliance on visual engagement. First deliveries of the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-21 F-13 then signaled the next step, an early supersonic interceptor optimized for higher speed and a cleaner, more dedicated air defense profile within Warsaw Pact style command and control. By the mid-1960s, West Germany and East Germany answered the same Central Front requirement, fast reaction and dense coverage, with sharply different fleet choices. In West German service, the Lockheed F-104G Starfighter began as an interceptor, but rapidly became a multi-role platform, pulled into day-to-day NATO tasking that extended well beyond pure air defense alert. To feed that pipeline, the Lockheed F-104F served as a qualified conversion trainer/fighter variant, built to produce starfighter crews at scale while keeping handling and procedures close to the operational aircraft. Alongside the Starfighter, the Fiat G91R/3 filled a qualified light fighter bomber niche, emphasizing tactical flexibility and survivable low-altitude work rather than high-speed interception. East Germany, meanwhile, built continuity around the MiG-21. The MiG-21PF and MiG-21PFM arrived as interceptor variants tuned for controlled intercept duties, reflecting Warsaw Pact doctrine and ground-directed engagement patterns. On the MiG-21 SPS and MiG-21 SPSK continued that interceptor lineage, keeping the MiG-21 family at the center of East German air defense through a steady sequence of improvements and expanding unit strength. Through the 1970s, the fighter balance inside Germany settled into long-running backbone fleets rather than constant turnover. In East Germany, the MiG-21MF became the improved interceptor standard, pairing familiar MiG-21 handling with a more credible air defense fit for routine alert work under ground-controlled procedures. The MiG-21 bis followed as the late-series high-performance variant, extending the same interceptor family with stronger overall performance, while keeping the mission centered on fast reaction and controlled intercepts. West Germany's fighter picture split by tasking. the Fiat G91R/3 remained a qualified battlefield strike/light fighter bomber, optimized for tactical support and survivable operations at lower altitude rather than high-end air defense interception. The Lockheed F-104G Starfighter increasingly sat in a qualified fighter bomber/nuclear strike role, reflecting NATO's multi-role load placed on a platform that had entered service as an interceptor. To bridge toward the next generation, the McDonnell Douglas F-4E, obtained in a qualified interim fighter/training bridge capacity, helped expand crew throughput and operational familiarity with heavier radar-equipped fighters without yet replacing the established fleet structure. By the late 1970s, both German air arms moved into an era defined by heavier sensors, longer engagement reach, and modernization driven as much by alliance standards as by airframe performance. In West German units, the McDonnell Douglas F-4F Phantom II became the central air defense fighter and multi-role platform, pairing radar-equipped interception with the day-to-day flexibility expected in NATO frontline squadrons. The McDonnell Douglas F-4E operated as a qualified interim fighter/training bridge, supported this transition by accelerating crew conversion and building experience with Phantom-era procedures and employment. East Germany shifted toward the MiG-23 family. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-23MF entered as an air defense fighter optimized for controlled intercept work with a more modern sensor and weapons fit than the earlier MiG-21 Even so, the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-21 bis remained a continuing interceptor workhorse, keeping alert duty and unit strength anchored in the familiar MiG-21 lineage. West Germany's earlier generation did not disappear overnight. The Lockheed F-104G Starfighter persisted in late service use as an interceptor/strike platform, overlapping with the Phantom force during the final stages of fleet replacement and role rebalancing. By the mid-1980s, German fighter operations were defined less by new introductions than by readiness sustained as routine. In West German quick reaction alert duty, the McDonnell Douglas F-4F Phantom II served as the primary QRA air defense fighter, built around standardized scrambles, radar-directed interceptions, and a steady cadence of training that kept crews current for the Central Front. In smaller numbers, the Lockheed F-104G Starfighter remained in a qualified fleet interceptor/strike capacity, a late surviving element of an earlier generation that persisted through established maintenance systems and trained personnel. On the eastern side, the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-23MF carried the heavier interceptor tasking, valued for radar-guided employment and a more credible beyond visual range posture within controlled intercept patterns. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-21MF/bis continued as a secondary air defense fighter, reinforcing coverage and unit depth with familiar MiG-21 performance and established procedures. Across both air forces, the period was marked by incremental improvement and disciplined readiness, with older airframes remaining operationally central through logistics stability and high sortie availability. In the final years before 1990, Germany's fighter picture briefly showed two eras at once. East Germany introduced the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-29A, a fourth-generation multi-role fighter that brought a sharper air combat and interception capability into NVA service at the close of the Cold War. Alongside it, the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-29UB entered as a qualified two-seat combat-capable trainer variant intended to build pilot proficiency on the new type while remaining closely aligned with operational handling and employment. Older fleets did not vanish with the arrival. The Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-23MF continued as a frontline interceptor in East German units, sustaining established radar-guided air defense patterns while the MiG-29 force grew. In the West, the McDonnell Douglas F-4F Phantom II remained the air defense mainstay, carrying the routine of alert duty and interception tasks that defined the Bundesluftwaffe's fighter posture through the period. The result was a narrow window in which modernized legacy fighters and a newly arrived fourth-generation type coexisted in the same national airspace, just as the political structure underpinning both fleets began to dissolve. After reunification, German fighters briefly became a mixed inventory shaped by evaluation, standardization, and rapid drawdown. The MiG-29G emerged as a qualified NATO-integrated XNVA fighter, retained and adapted for Western procedures and interoperability, while preserving the core performance of the former East German MiG-29 fleet. Alongside it, the MiG-21MF was taken over as a qualified XNVA fighter in the immediate post-1990 transition. But it was treated as a short-term inheritance rather than a platform for long-term modernization. The MiG-23MF occupied an even narrower window as a qualified XNVA interceptor in brief transition, present long enough to be cataloged and assessed before retirement under a unified force structure. West German types continued to define daily readiness. The McDonnell Douglas F-4, F-Phantom II remained the continuing air defense fighter, sustaining routine alert and intercept commitments during the administrative upheaval. The Lockheed F-104G Starfighter, already at the end of its service life, closed out its final year presence as the old fleet gave way to a consolidated post-Cold War inventory. This catalog stays category safe by separating fighters from fast platforms used for other missions. Once the Panavia Tornado IDS served West Germany as an interdictor and strike aircraft. Even when air defense tasks existed elsewhere in the Tornado family, the IDS variant is not a fighter match. East Germany's Sukhoi Su-22 was a dedicated attack aircraft, optimized for delivering ordnance rather than controlled intercept. The RF-4E Phantom II is excluded because its primary identity is reconnaissance, with sensors replacing the fighter mission focus. The Dassault/Dornier Alpha Jet A belongs to the light attack and advanced trainer lane, built around instruction and close support rather than frontline air defense. The MiG-23BN, a strike-focused MiG-23 variant, is similarly treated as adjacent, fast, but configured around ground attack rather than interceptor employment.